Gentlemen, I need you to stop and think about what you ate for breakfast this morning, or what you had with lunch. Because there is a very real chance that something you consider healthy, something you have been told for decades is good for you, is quietly working against the hormonal system that governs your energy, your strength, your drive, and your sexual function. I am not talking about processed food. I am not talking about sugar or alcohol or anything you already know to avoid. I am talking about fruit, specific fruits, 3 of them. And the reason most men over 60 have never been warned about this is that the connection between these fruits and testosterone suppression is hidden inside a biochemical mechanism that your general practitioner almost certainly never discussed with you. Not because they don't care, but because hormonal nutrition for aging men is one of the most under-examined areas in mainstream medicine. What I am about to share with you today is not a fringe theory. It is grounded in endocrinology research, and it may be the most practically actionable thing you hear all week. I'm Dr. Jocelyn Carter, a board-certified urologist with over 14 years of clinical experience, specializing in men's hormonal health and urological function in the 50-plus population. I have worked with thousands of men who came to me with fatigue they couldn't explain, with muscle loss that confused them, with a libido that had quietly gone flat. And in a significant number of those cases, the dietary picture told a story that their previous doctors had never looked at. My goal today is not to alarm you. It is to inform you. Because information is what gives you choices. And gentlemen, you have more choices than you have been told. Before we get into it, hit that like button and leave me a comment right now. Tell me, which of these 3 fruits do you eat regularly? I genuinely want to know, and I read every single comment. You might be surprised how many men in this community are in exactly the same position you are. Here is something that most men over 60 do not fully understand about testosterone. After the age of about 35, testosterone levels begin a slow, gradual decline, roughly 1 to 2% per year. By the time a man reaches his mid-60s, he may have lost anywhere from 20 to 40% of the testosterone he had in his prime. Most men are aware of this in a general way. What most men are not aware of is that this natural hormonal decline can be significantly accelerated by specific dietary inputs. Inputs that directly interfere with the body's ability to produce, maintain, and utilize testosterone at the cellular level. The 3 fruits I'm going to name today are not rare or exotic. They are the fruits sitting in most men's kitchens right now. And the mechanism by which they lower testosterone is not immediately obvious, which is exactly why this has flown under the radar for so long. I call this the invisible dietary threat. And once you understand it, you will never look at your fruit bowl the same way again. Fruit number 1, grapefruit. I want to start with grapefruit because it is the one that surprises men the most. Grapefruit has an excellent reputation. It's tangy, low in calories, high in vitamin C, and many men eat it deliberately as part of a health-conscious routine. And in many contexts, that reputation is deserved. But here is what the research shows, and what very few people are talking about in the context of men's hormonal health specifically. Grapefruit contains a class of compounds called furanocoumarins, most notably naringenin and bergamottin. These compounds are potent inhibitors of an enzyme in the liver and intestinal wall called CYP3A4. Now, CYP3A4 is responsible for metabolizing a wide range of substances in the body, including estrogen. When CYP3A4 is inhibited by grapefruit, estrogen metabolism slows, estrogen accumulates, and elevated estrogen in men directly suppresses the hypothalamic pituitary axis, the signaling chain that tells the testes to produce testosterone. In plain terms, grapefruit consumption raises estrogen, and elevated estrogen tells your body to make less testosterone. Studies have shown that even moderate, regular grapefruit consumption can produce measurable changes in estrogen and testosterone ratios in men over 50. The effect is not dramatic with a single serving, but for the man eating half a grapefruit every morning, week after week, year after year, The cumulative hormonal impact is clinically significant. Many men I see in my clinic have been eating grapefruit for years, with the sincere belief that they were doing something good for themselves. There is something quietly disheartening about learning that a health-conscious habit has been working against you. But I want to reframe that feeling immediately. This is not a failure. This is information. And information is power. The moment you know, you can change. That is what we're here for. Remove grapefruit from your daily or weekly routine. If you love citrus, replace it with navel oranges, clementines, or blood oranges, none of which contain significant furanocoumarin levels. The swap is simple. The hormonal benefit of removing the grapefruit interference can begin within weeks. I'm thinking of Dennis, 67, a retired school principal who came to see me after his GP dismissed his fatigue and low libido as normal aging. Dennis was meticulous about his diet. He ate grapefruit every single morning, drank green tea, exercised 3 times a week. His testosterone came back at 280 nanograms per deciliter, well below the reference range for his age. We ran a full hormonal panel. His estrogen was elevated. When I walked him through the grapefruit estrogen mechanism, his expression shifted in a way I recognized immediately. He said, "I've been eating that every morning for 11 years. We removed the grapefruit. We made 2 other dietary adjustments. 6 weeks later, his testosterone had risen to 410. He told me, "I feel like someone turned the lights back on." Dennis is not exceptional. Dennis is what happens when the invisible threat is finally named. Fruit number 2, dried figs. This one catches men off guard every time I mention it. Figs have ancient credibility as a help food. They are high in fiber, rich in potassium, and frequently recommended as a digestion aid. And all of that is true. But dried figs specifically carry a hormonal liability that most men over 60 cannot afford to ignore. Dried figs are one of the most concentrated sources of phytoestrogens in the common diet. Phytoestrogens are plant compounds that structurally mimic estrogen in the human body. The specific compounds in figs, including coumestans and certain isoflavone-adjacent polyphenols, bind to estrogen receptors with enough affinity to produce a measurable estrogenic effect. For younger men with robust testosterone levels and efficient hormonal metabolism, the impact of moderate phytoestrogen exposure is relatively minor. But for a man over 60, whose testosterone is already lower, whose liver is processing hormones less efficiently, and whose estrogen to testosterone ratio is already shifting unfavorably, adding concentrated phytoestrogen load through dried figs creates a compounding hormonal problem. Research published in endocrinology literature has documented that high phytoestrogen intake in aging men is associated with further suppression of luteinizing hormone, the pituitary signal that drives testicular testosterone production. Less LH means less testosterone. It is a direct chain of cause and effect. This one lands hard for men who have been eating dried figs as a deliberate health choice, perhaps after reading about their fiber content or their traditional use in Mediterranean diets. And I want to acknowledge that. You were making a good faith effort. The information you had was incomplete. That is not your fault. What matters now is what you do with the complete picture. If you enjoy figs, fresh figs in very small quantities carry a substantially lower phytoestrogen load than the dried form, simply due to concentration. But if you have been eating dried figs regularly, as a snack, in oatmeal, in trail mix, remove them. Replace the fiber benefit with flaxseed in very small amounts, or with raspberries and blackberries, which are high in fiber and carry no meaningful estrogenic burden. Fruit number 3, dried dates, in excess. I want to be precise here because dates are genuinely nutrient dense and I am not making a blanket case against them. The issue is specific. Dried dates consumed in the quantities many men eat them, 4, 6, 8 at a sitting, often as a natural sugar substitute or energy boost, create a blood sugar dynamic that is directly antagonistic to testosterone production. Stay with me on the mechanism because this one is particularly important for men who think of themselves as eating well. Dried dates have one of the highest glycemic loads of any common fruit. A serving of 4 to 6 dates delivers a rapid, significant spike in blood glucose, which triggers a corresponding insulin response. Here is where testosterone enters the picture. Insulin, at chronically elevated levels, suppresses the production of sex hormone-binding globulin, SHBG. SHBG is the carrier protein that transports testosterone through the bloodstream. But elevated insulin also directly inhibits the Leydig cells in the testes, the very cells responsible for producing testosterone. Multiple studies have confirmed the inverse relationship between chronic hyperinsulinemia and free testosterone levels. Add to this the fact that the blood sugar roller coaster created by high glycemic fruit consumption contributes to visceral fat accumulation, and visceral fat is one of the most potent drivers of aromatase activity, the enzyme that converts testosterone directly into estrogen, and you begin to see how eating dates in large quantities creates a multi-pathway hormonal problem. Each pathway alone is manageable. Together, they compound into something that can meaningfully suppress testosterone over time. Dates are often recommended in health-conscious communities as a natural sweetener, a pre-workout energy source, a clean alternative to candy. Men who have made this swap often feel proud of the choice, and I understand that. The intention was right, the understanding of the hormonal downstream simply wasn't there yet. Now it is, and now you can make a more complete decision. If you enjoy dates, limit yourself to 1 or 2 maximum per sitting, paired with a protein or fat source. A small handful of walnuts, a piece of cheese, which blunts the glycemic spike significantly. But if you have been eating dates freely as a health food with no portion awareness, that habit needs to change. The blood sugar impact on your testosterone is real, measurable, and cumulative. I think about Marcus, 72, a former marathon runner who came to me with a constellation of symptoms: persistent fatigue, mood flatness, a loss of the physical vitality that had defined his adult life. His diet was genuinely excellent by most measures: lean proteins, vegetables, whole grains, minimal alcohol. But he was also eating 6 to 8 medjool dates every afternoon as his training snack, and dried figs in his morning yogurt. His testosterone was at 245, his insulin markers were elevated, his estrogen was high for his age. When we traced the hormonal footprint of just those 2 dietary habits and removed them, replacing them with low glycemic alternatives and adding a targeted zinc protocol, within 8 weeks, his testosterone had moved to 380. He hadn't changed his exercise, he hadn't added medications, he had removed 2 invisible threats from his daily routine. Marcus told me, "I went looking for something complicated. It turned out to be something simple." That is the story I see over and over again in men who take this seriously. Here is your simple, immediate action plan. Starting today, remove grapefruit from your regular rotation entirely. If you eat it daily, this single change begins restoring your estrogen metabolism within days. Starting this week, audit your dried fruit intake. Check your snacks, your yogurt toppings, your trail mix. Remove dried figs and high-quantity dried dates. Replace them with fresh berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, which are low glycemic, antioxidant-rich, and carry no meaningful estrogenic burden. In the next 2 to 4 weeks, if you want to accelerate the hormonal recovery, add a zinc supplement, 25 to 30 milligrams of zinc bisglycinate daily with food. Zinc is one of the most well-documented cofactors in testosterone synthesis, and the majority of men over 60 are mildly deficient. That is 3 changes. Remove grapefruit. Remove problematic dried fruits. Add zinc. Most men who make all 3 changes consistently report noticeable differences in energy and drive within 4 to 6 weeks. Not months, weeks. I want to say something directly now. If your energy has been lower than you want it to be, if your drive, physical, sexual, motivational, has felt like it is slowly fading, if you have accepted that this is simply what getting older looks like, and that there is nothing particularly actionable to be done about it. I want you to hear this clearly. That acceptance is premature. Testosterone decline after 60 is real, but the rate and severity of that decline is heavily influenced by factors within your control, including, as you now know, specific dietary choices that most men have never been given complete information about. The research is not ambiguous on this. Hormonal optimization in aging men is one of the most active and productive areas in urology and endocrinology right now. And the practical implications of that research are more accessible and more achievable than most men have been led to believe. This is not inevitable. Your body has more capacity than you have been told. The men I see who make these changes, and make them consistently, do not just feel better on paper. They feel like themselves again. That is what's actually within reach. If this video gave you something genuinely useful, something concrete you can act on today, give it a like so that other men can find it. Leave a comment and tell me which of these 3 fruits was in your kitchen right now. I want to hear from you. Share this with a man over 60 who is dealing with low energy, low drive, or unexplained fatigue, because the answer might be simpler than either of you thought. And subscribe if you want more clinical, evidence-backed nutrition and hormonal health guidance that actually respects your intelligence and your capacity to change. I'm Dr. Emily Carter. The evidence is clear. The hormonal environment you live in after 60 is far more responsive to the right dietary choices than most men have ever been told. And what you remove from your plate may matter just as much as what you add. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.